On behalf of MITAC, the MIT Activities Committee, we are thrilled to have Cynthia Sutphin from the Lavender Farm, the Cape Cod Lavender Farm, here today to talk about the growing and the harvesting and distilling process with lavender, and some of the health benefits of lavender. Cynthia's not a doctor and can't diagnose or anything with the lavender, but there are health benefits to lavender as well. So without further ado, Cynthia, I'll have you take us to the Cape Cod Lavender Farm in Cape Cod.
Great. Thank you, Diane. Thank you for having me, everybody. I'm looking forward to sharing our farm with everybody.
We'll kick things off with this short video.
I'm Cynthia Sutphin, and I'm owner of the Cape Cod Lavender Farm in Harwich, Mass. We were prepared for this Saturday event that was in the Harwich Oracle, that you could come to the lavender farm and see the lavender being picked and buy fresh bunches. Well, we were going to open at 10 o'clock and close at 4 o'clock. We had a line out to Route 124 for the event that day. People came and they watched us pick and bought the bunches. And we have been open every day since. We are celebrating our 25th harvest. As lavender was becoming more popular and it's so versatile, I knew that there were a lot of avenues to go down. So lavender led the way, and then the business, I never had any experience in wanting to start a business. It's kind of been on its own, it's just happened, and we've kept up with it. E-commerce is important because it's an extension of our season, and we're able to serve people that aren't around. A lot of our customers are summer people. A lot of our customers are all around the nation because of the social media exposure. Now we're able to show people that we are a place to come and a place to visit. Even though you might not be able to come here physically, you can have a tour of our farm and get a feel for our lifestyle. We distill because lavender contains this precious oil in the buds. We steam distill, and the steam goes up through the buds and comes down and condenses in the cool pipe, and the hydrosol is made, and then the precious oil floats to the top, and it's a sort of a completeness to the whole experience. We grow it, and we harvest it, and we distill it, and we carry the gift of the distillation during the winter. At this point, what we have a body product line, and we have candles, we have fresh bunches, we have plants, we have massage oil, bath oil, lemonade mix, hand soap. I can't imagine doing anything else. I love it. I don't ever think about retiring from this life. I'd like to let up a little bit, but I want the farm to live on. People thank us when they come here for sharing it. That's important to us. We've shared it, and my kids have enjoyed it, and they're now sharing it with my grandchildren who love it. I'm looking forward already to the next harvest.
Thanks so much for that. That video actually made me tear up a little bit when I watched it in preparation for this talk. There's a lot of experiences we don't get to have right now, and it was really nice being able to see the farm from afar. And I know you're gonna lead us through a little bit of a talk about the farm and how you got started into lavender farming. And I've got this little PowerPoint from the pictures you sent over that'll just play in the background.
Great, thank you.
Thank
That
you
looks
so much.
nice. Yeah, yeah. Well, thank you. And I look forward to sharing any information that I'm able to the audience. As that little film described, we started 25 years ago, and we've been going strong ever since. We've been growing a little bit every year. We didn't want to make a big splash right off because we weren't sure what direction lavender might take us. But when we first started, it was a challenge to sell the flowers. I'm so sorry. And I had to harvest the flowers in June and July. And because we didn't have, we weren't open to the public at that point, I had to bring my flowers up to Boston on any given day that they expected them. And I would sell them at the Boston Flower Exchange. And that kind of got old very fast because I was a slave to the weather and to the expectation of having lavender at a certain place on Monday morning or Thursday morning. And if the lavender wasn't ready to be picked, then we had problems. So that's why we decided to invite people to come here to see it. And it was the right decision. We see about 10,000 people a year, and we have about 10,000. We started with about 10,000 plants. We don't have that many now, but we have a controlled acre of lavender plants, and then some little areas around the property. We abut 12 acres. We own 12 acres, and we abut 100 acres of conservation. So we have a lot of visitors that come, and they might want to take advantage of the walking trails that surround us and go through the lavender and enjoy some peace and quiet. It's very serene, very calm and simple and uncomplicated, and a good place to reflect. So we've had a good experience with the public, and we grow 7 different varieties. They're English lavenders or hybrids of. We have Munstead, Hidcote, and Jean Davis. They're the staples. Munstead and Hidcote are traditional angustifolia varieties that are the hardiest, and they endure winters quite well. And most of mine are 20 or 25 years old. And then we have Jean Davis, which is pink. And Jean Davis is really very pale pink, but it has a beautiful scent to it. It smells very fruity and like peaches. So that's a fun one. And it looks great if you're picking bunches and selling bunches. The pink looks really nice offset with the dark purple and the light purple. So we also have Phenomenal, which is a hybrid variety, and Grosso, which is another hybrid, intermedia they're called, lavender intermedia, and Provence. And those 3 have a very long stem. They bloom a little bit later, and they are also very fragrant. And they're good for making sachets, potpourri. They're also good in food and to make lavender wands while it's fresh. It's nice to have the pliable stems to fool around with and do whatever you want to do to preserve the lavender. So we prune in September. We weed and take care of everything in the springtime, and then the lavender starts to bud up around the last week in May, and it stays budded up until it blooms, and it usually starts to bloom the last week in June. And when it starts to bloom, we like to let the buds get very plump before we pick. That way it looks nice when you sell the bunches with the blooms not quite open, and it smells wonderful as well. So we start to pick shortly after it starts to bloom. and we don't have the benefit of watching it bloom and stay in bloom for a couple of weeks because we pick it and sell it and distill it. And what is left, I usually dry, but this year we sold out. We don't have anything left to dry. I saved back one little area to distill. So I'm doing my last distillation tomorrow. And we'll distill it for the hydrosol and for the oil, which will float to the top of every distillation. And I just peel off the hydrosol and then bottle up the lavender oil. So that is sort of how the year goes. And after the harvest time, which is we're just finishing up this past week, we will prune back the lavender again in September and keep it watered and healthy after it gets picked, because they get a little weak and they need a little water, especially in this kind of weather where it's been so muggy and dry. Lavender typically is, I'll go into some of the growing points of lavender and the different varieties that we have. So I'll start that now. We have, as I say, we have 7 varieties, and all lavender plants require the same conditions. That is full sun, good drainage, and sweet soil. So full sun is a minimum of 6 hours, and the full sun, sweet soil is the pH level in the soil should be, the alkaline should be high at 7 or above. Lavender likes a sweeter soil, and lavender doesn't like to be watered that often. It needs to be watered to get established, but once it's established, watering once or twice a week is just fine. They can rot if you put mulch over them that retains the moisture. They don't want that moisture. That will cause root rot, and it will actually cause the plant to die if it doesn't have the ability to dry out between waterings. And the dryness helps the scent in the flower. So we also sell lavender plants. We have a grower, and we sell about 5,000 plants a year, and they're all beautiful, robust, usually 1-year-old plants that people can put in their yards. And if you purchase in the spring, you will usually see a bloom that year. If you purchase in the fall, you wait and let it get established, and then you'll see your bloom in June. So they need full sun, good drainage, and sweet soil. And if they're happy, they give you lots of pleasure. Some of the little tips that we give people is not to bury them in a perennial border, because they get cramped by other plants, and they also water too much. You don't want to put it in a vegetable garden that you water every day, because it needs to have its own space to dry out. Some of the best locations for lavender would be along the edge of a walkway or a driveway, or with stone edging, so that the reflection of the stones or the walkway goes back up onto the plant. And they seem to love that sort of edging. And we have, we don't mulch our plants. We used to sand mulch because the sand reflected the heat, but we don't do that anymore because the sandy loam is quite nice on the Cape. So we've done well. Our lavender plants have done well. Some of them are getting pretty tired because they are 25 years old, but they've been producing some wonderful bunches for us year after year. And so that's a little bit about the plant there. The varieties, as I say, the English ones are the angustifolia family. They're the traditional English lavenders that, as I say, are the hardiest. And then the other 3, the Phenomenal, the Provence, and the Grosso, are they're hardy, but they're less hardy. And they don't withstand the winters as well as the Munstead and the Hidcote, but we have had some of ours are 20 years old. So that that kind of covers a thumbnail of planting and good conditions for lavender. Lavender is a very versatile plant. It's our slogan is here at the farm, celebrate the senses with lavender, because it appeals to every sense. It's beautiful to look at, and it's nice to listen to when the bees are all buzzing around. You can taste it, it's edible, it's good, adds a lot of flavor to a lot of different things, meats and sweets. You can, let's see, smell, taste, hear, touch. It's beautiful to touch, and it's great smelling when it touches, and then the smell. So it's our versatile herb. It serves a lot of purposes for food prep and visual pleasure. And it also has a large place in some of our health issues. And as I say, I'm not a doctor. Excuse me, I have to disconnect this. I'm so sorry.
No problem at all.
I'm so sorry.
I did have a question though, and just a reminder to everybody watching, if you do have a question, please feel free to drop it in chat. But we see with some of these pictures, it looks like there are different varieties of lavender that are all planted sort of together in patches. Is there a special benefit that you get from planting some of these more purples next to the whites? Are those different varieties that we see, or just different coloration?
What you just pointed to were they were Lavender, Munstead, and Hidcote, and Jean Davis. Those are the three. They have the very same growth habit, so they look great together. The only difference in the plant is the color of the flower. So we mix them up intentionally. A lot of places kind of segregate and have rows of different varieties, but we mix those varieties up. And then we have separated. I have, you'll see in some of the photos too, there's a line of Phenomenal, and then there's another line of Grosso. So people can, you know, have a look and define, maybe see what they'd like to purchase, see the difference in the plant. But there's no particular reason for planting them together, except that we liked the way they looked, the different colors. Some of the taller varieties bloom a little bit later as well. So the Munstead and the Angustifolia families all bloom. They're the first to bloom. They bloom the end of June and into July. And then when they finish up, the taller varieties come into bloom. So it's a continuation. It's not a very long one. It doesn't last all summer, but it does last for 5 or 6 weeks if you let them go full, enjoy their full bloom.
Excellent. And we don't have any questions from the audience yet, but I did have another question. I hear a lot about lavender oil, but I don't hear quite as often about the hydrosol. And I was interested in hearing, what are the different applications that you use for the oil versus the hydrosol, especially when you're talking about making different lavender products?
Well, we distill the lavender. That is a process. It's my favorite part. Well, no, actually, it's not. It's one of my favorite parts of our lives here at the farm. We steam distill, and we put about my still is takes about 5 pounds of lavender, which is quite a bit. And so we get the steam going in the bottom, and then we put the basket in and fill the still with lavender. And I fill it not tight, but pretty packed. And then we get the temperature up to boiling so that the water on the bottom is boiling in the still. And the steam comes up, it rises through the lavender. and it goes down a pipe. What you might see on some of these photographs, there's a neck on my stainless steel still that is very hot at the base of the neck, and then we have a hose that goes into the bottom part of the neck, and it cools down the steam, and that condenses and it becomes the liquid hydrosol. So it comes up through the lavender as steam, and then it comes out of the still as hydrosol. And that is what we use as our skin toner. We sell it right out of the still because it's good for skin care. It contains vitamins or whatever is in the lavender that's good for the skin. And then the oil, as it comes through, it goes into a beaker, and I collect the hydrosol in little bottles. And then at the very end of the distillation, which takes about 2 hours, I will shut the still down and let it settle in the beaker. I'll pour off the rest of the water, the hydrosol, and then what's left in the beaker will be the oil. And after about 2 hours of distillation, I'm lucky to get 1 ounce of oil. So the oil we don't sell, we save that as gifts for family. It's kind of like my private stock. It only ends up being about 12 ounces a year. So that so the hydrosol is the product that we use, that can be used in all sorts of skin products. It's used in creams and soaps, and anything that would require distilled water. The lavender water would be very useful for. But we just sell it as a face spray. It's a little spritzer, and it smells very buttery. There's only 3% oil in it. It smells more like earthy, grassy. It's not a pungent lavender oil smell. It's got a different scent to it. And there's the oil floating on the top now after 2 hours. So yeah, that's the story of the hydrosol.
Excellent. We had a couple questions come in from chat too. Caroline Livingston asks if all varieties of lavender are edible, and do you need to do anything specific besides washing it to prepare them for cooking?
Good question. Well, we consider all lavender edible. You might read or hear that Provence is a good lavender for eating. We eat Provence. We use Provence in food. We sell the angustifolia varieties because they are particularly sweet. So the pink Gene Davis, and there are other names and varieties of pink, but Gene Davis is the one we have, and the Hidcote and the Munstead are used predominantly in sweets. They can be used, in meats and fish as well, but that's the one. If we're going to make shortbread or scones, we would use the angustifolia. Where the other varieties, the Provence and the Grosso, have a more stronger flavor that goes better with meat and fish. That's my opinion, but we do eat all of them. We're still kicking. So, but I don't know any particular varieties that you don't eat, unless it's like the Spanish lavender. I wouldn't eat. That's nothing that we even grow, but that's an annual around in these parts, and it's not something that you want to put in cooking.
Thank you.
And washing it before it also intensifies as it dries. So if you're going to cook with it fresh, if you're going to use it in creams or in creme brulee or to flavor a pudding or something, you would steep it fresh in cream. If it's dried, you would do the same thing, but the flavor, you would need less, because the flavor is much more intense when it's dried. We just sold a lot of pounds to Rankin Torrey's ice cream up near Boston, and they did a special. They made lavender honey ice cream and lavender lemon ice cream for a big ice cream kick that they were doing a couple of weeks ago. And one of my employees actually lives up that way. She went home for the weekend and had it. She said it was delicious. So lavender is wonderful in food and salad dressings too. It's sweet and savory, so it's versatile that way.
I am only upset that I probably can't have any of that lavender ice cream. It sounds like quite a limited run.
Well,
But
I don't
that's
know. They had it
delicious.
Sunday. Yeah.
Oh man.
Yeah.
We had a question from Peter Bedrosian who asks, which varieties are mounding? And I don't have any extra context. What
Another
does
good
that
question.
mean?
Well, I skipped that little part, which is important. We prune the lavender in September. That keeps the lavender young. So, because lavender is a shrub and it will get very woody if you don't tend to it. So September is the right time to do a pruning. We take 1/3 off of the plant, which creates a dome shape on most plants. Most plants are domed or round, or if they're born that way, and then if they're kept trimmed in the fall, they will stay that way. And that's what gives them the dome shape. The phenomenal variety, which is a fairly new variety, it's only 6 or 8 years out there, grows in a very neat and tidy dome-like shape. It gets very large, but it has a gorgeous round shape if you keep it tended and trimmed. But September is the time to trim. Some of the varieties, the angustifolia varieties, you can prune in the spring, but you do want to be careful.
Thank you for that answer. I never would have known. All of the, there are a lot of plants out there that you just think, when you get the finished product, you don't think, oh, it's a bush if you let it grow, and
Right.
it'll turn into
Yeah.
something not as usable. We have another question here from Catherine Lannon who asks, I've heard that most commercial lavender essential oil also includes oil from the green stems, which is not the same quality as the oil from the buds. Can you comment on that?
I can do it. I can comment a little, and that the reason for that I can comment is because I have 2 stills. I have my stainless steel still, which is a large capacity for me, and then I have a copper still, and the copper still is new to us this year. We got it for our 25th anniversary because I wanted to try distilling in copper. The reason I wanted to try that was because well, I can have a big copper still, but the one that I have is more for just the flowers. And that means that the oil is going to be highly concentrated. I do distillation. I've only done 1 distillation in that copper still, and I got very little oil, but it was oil from just the flowers. The stainless steel still that I use, I put the whole stem and the whole enchilada that we pick, that you can see in some of these photographs. I don't cut the green off. I put the green in, and especially in the long varieties, because they're bred for their scent. And the oil, when I get through loading the still, the oil is gooey on my hands. So I do distill the greens, and that's about as much as I can comment. I haven't done just the flowers enough. I've only done 1 distillation with the copper still that removes the alkaline, or the sulfates. No, not alkaline. The copper is good for the oil. It makes high quality oil because it does remove the sulfates. The copper has a chemical reaction with the oil, and so the oil is tastier and purer. But good lavender oil, organic oil, is very expensive. and very wonderful smelling. And I don't know that I would be able to determine the difference between one that was just floral without distilling the stems. And my son, who just was in France a while back in Provence, and he said that to watch them throw all of the lavender into the stills is quite an amazing sight, but they throw everything in. It's not as cut and dry, but maybe they do have certain areas of their distillation center that does just the flowers. So it's a question that I will be able to answer better next year after I've used the copper still with just the floral, just the buds, and no stems. And that does not produce hydrosol either. So that's how intense it is. So it's apt to be a higher grade oil for sure.
That sounds like it would be quite a change to your production too. Do you have a plan as to like how much of the lavender you might set aside for that?
Well, yeah, I made that plan this year because I had to set some aside, because this year we typically in a harvest season, we will have enough to hang to dry, which means that I have more than enough to distill. This year we sold so much fresh lavender. People they were craving the fresh bunches, so that I had to reserve a space behind one of my little building I have to pick just for distillation. And that's what I'm doing now. I've done about 12 distillations, but the ones I'm doing now are the hybrids, the intermediates that have high oil content. So to answer your question about deciding how I'm going to do it to get the hydrosol and whatever next year, I might have to add some more plants. We'll see. Another area.
That sounds like a good problem to have, at least. Being able to expand your flower collection.
Yes.
A question from Diane. What kind of lavender is typically used for lavender linen spray and or lavender room spray? Any thoughts on that?
The angustifolias. If they're using essential oil in the room sprays, or we use a spritzer and I have a pillow spray, it's the angustifolia oil. It's a sweeter oil.
Makes sense. And next question from Lisa. When should lavender be blooming typically? I have English lavender, new this year, but no signs of buds yet. Maybe it doesn't bloom the first year.
If she bought a plant in the spring that was almost mature and put it in the ground, say March or April, she should have had flowers, but it depends on the size of your plant. If you plant in the spring, you should see some blooms. If you plant in the fall, of course, you wait until the following June and July, which is when they typically bloom. But if she bought a new plant in the spring and it was in the greenhouse growing, it's going to be off this year. It's going to bloom. It's got a mind of its own, and it will bloom when it matures to blooming. But typically, once it gets established, they bloom in June and July. Some of them have a rebloom in the fall, but it's nothing like the spring flowering.
A related question: if somebody is planting a new group of lilacs, are there specific signs of them sort of getting a little bit wrong that they should look for? Signs of overwatering, signs that there's not enough sunlight?
Well, the minimum sunlight consideration for full sun is 6 hours. So a person would need to know that they have at least 6 hours of nice hot sun. Overwatering and underwatering can cause the same symptoms. If the lavender has overwaters, it can turn yellow. If the lavender gets underwatered, it can also turn yellow. However, if it gets overwatered, you will start to see it rot. It will wilt. It looks like it's thirsty, but it's actually drowning. So that's why we encourage people not to plant their lavender near irrigation, or unless they can time their irrigations, and not to plant their lavender with drip hoses, and to water only every other day for about 3 weeks or a month until they get established. And so the sign, and the lavender is also can succumb to fungus. So if it gets too much water, it gets mildewy and you know, yucky looking, black, and doesn't look healthy. So you just got to kind of monitor your own behavior to see what it might be. Fertilizing is okay, just a general plant tone fertilizer. You don't want to use something special that is good for acid lovers, because lavender is a sweet soil lover. So just like I say, a general fertilizer once a year should be fine.
In that same vein, with lavender liking sweet soil, Peter Bedrosian asks, what's the best way to make soil sweeter? Would you add lime? I know you've got good soil there on the Cape, but.
Well, we actually, on Cape Cod, we have very acidic soil, so the answer is to lime. We lime once a year, and just with a spreader, just go through and keep the soil sweet. The lime will sweeten it very nicely. You can scratch it in or around the top when you put a plant in, or you can lime your bed once a year. Most lime used to take 6 months to break down, but now you can buy pelletized lime, and that breaks down faster. So it gets into the soil more quickly.
Wonderful. Well, we don't currently have any extra questions from the audience. If anybody does have any questions, remember just to drop them there in chat. But I know you'd also been, you talked a little bit in that video about what it's like to bring your business online. And I was wondering, would you like to tell us a little bit about how that's changed?
Yeah.
How
well,
you've done
yes.
sales and such?
We've had to grow, because lavender is very seasonal. And, you know, we capture the harvest for 3 weeks, but being on Cape Cod, we had to extend our season, because if lavender was going to be the occupation, then introducing other products that were lavender related was critical to our sustaining a lifestyle. So I introduced a few products early on. We had a candle and a bar of soap that we still have. The bar of soap, the same man has been making the soap for 25 years, and he makes it the old school way. Anyway, we had to shoulder the season. So back 25 years ago, computers were just coming out, and we had a website. And so we've just kind of gone along with the development of the technology. And I have a nice website. I have a store online that I do fair business with all year. We're trying to encourage that more, and getting to just stretch the season. So I've grown, the e-commerce has grown along with the business. I have a girl a great social media marketer who works with me, and she posts on my website, and she set up my store for me, or redid my store several years ago. And she keeps up with all of the media that is necessary in today's world to increase sales and increase attention. We see so many people from all around the world that come, and they come because of social media. And the e-commerce is the same way, only it's a little tougher with e-commerce, because the shipping costs of products is exorbitant, and we can't be like Amazon and have free shipping. But we're working hard at developing our e-commerce, and it seems to be going well. I'm very excited about it. So we had introduced a hand sanitizer just quickly by coincidence. I try to introduce a new product every year, and this year in December, we decided it was going to be a hand sanitizer. So I developed the recipe that I wanted, and we had enough hand sanitizer to open the shop in March. Then COVID arrived, and hand sanitizer was hard to come by. So I put that on my e-commerce store, and we sold out in about 20 minutes. And then we had to scramble around and get enough to keep people happy, which we did. But it was quite a race back in March and April. So, and the hand sanitizer is wonderful. It smells delicious. It's lavender essential oil with lemon and lime, and essential oils of lemon and lime, and grain alcohol. It's quite nice. But, and that gets me back to, I didn't really cover some of the health benefits of lavender. It just serves, as I say, it's good for insomnia. It benefits, it's antifungal and it's antibacterial. So you can use it on a burn or on a bug bite and have a remedy pretty quickly. It's good on wounds that are not severe wounds, but just in a healing process. And it's also good for anxiety. If you have anxiety, you can put lavender oil on your pulse points, or on, which is on your wrists or the back of your neck or behind your ears or on the bottom of your feet. And it gets into your blood system, and it has components that calm anxiety and depression, and also headaches. And I've heard that they use it in dental offices before, if a person has anxiety about going into the dentist, that they now are using lavender oil pre getting in the chair at the dentist. And also for hair loss, lavender oil on your scalp where you might be losing hair is also beneficial. So there are a great number of reasons to have lavender in your life.
We also, thank you. That was a good timing, because we did have a question from Ariane Kulo Nicolio about the healing benefits of lavender, but she also asks, how did you get interested in lavender in the first place?
Well, I had, this is when we went back to 25 years ago. I have 4 children, and I needed to work. I had the land, and I wanted to grow. I love to garden. I love to get dirty. And I started, it was an important thing to create a lifestyle that kept me at home and that was natural. And I decided on lavender because it was not being grown by many people at all. It's a very old plant. It goes back to Egyptian times. It's been around forever, but but it has taken a little holiday for a while. So we decided that it would be lavender, and I did some homework, did some research with UMass Agricultural School to find out, what I might need to do, because I wanted to grow lavender, and lavender was versatile, and I loved it, and it was just a personal thing. But I was actually discouraged from growing it because the Cape climate wouldn't be good. But that was 25 years ago, and we still have those plants, so it worked out. But lavender was a choice that I made because nobody else was growing it, and I knew that I could make a go of it. And it took a while, but we were in fact on the forefront of reintroducing lavender to a lot of people. We were back 25 years ago the only lavender farm on the East Coast, and now there are many, and there weren't too many on the West Coast either. But so we've been at it a while, and it was a good choice because I loved it. That was, to answer your question, lavender just led the way once I got got to know it.
That's really cool. I think, you know, a lot of times you think of these oils like lavender that we have access to from different places, but then you never know where it comes from. And
Right.
seeing local farms start to regrow that stuff in our backyard is something that's really cool. And I'm, you know, it's something to be proud of for our community.
Well, we've had a good time. We've had a good time doing it, and the potential for lavender is just ongoing. There's just so much that it offers. And it was also the reason I started was, it was a lifestyle that I wanted to grow a lot of one thing. And I wanted to be at home with my kids, and it all worked out.
Oh, that's great. We had another question here from Laura Lynn Smith. Can you share if lavender plants are available for sale at the farm and what the pricing ranges are for 1 gallon pots, other sizes, and what hours is the farm open? The website says 7 days a week,
Yeah.
but not hours.
We are open 7 days a week, 10 to 4 every day except Sunday. And Sunday is 12 to 4. We have a wonderful variety of lavender plants, 1 gallon containers for sale. Most of the lavender that we sell is either 1 year old or 6 months old. They're sturdy plants, and they're all, at this time, they're all $18. All the same price. So we have 5 varieties right now for sale. And we don't ship though. We don't ship plants.
So it sounds like somebody's going to have to make a trip down to the farm on the Cape. I'm sure that'll be a trip to the Cape. What an imposition.
Yeah.
That'll be a lovely trip to make out for that. Laura Lynn says she looks forward to visiting.
Tell her thank you. We look for, make sure she introduces herself.
Yes, if anybody visits the farm, say my text sent you.
Absolutely.
If we have any other questions from anybody else watching, please do drop them in chat. We're coming to the end of the talk here. But anything else about running a farm that you want to share? Anything that you've learned over the years people might not know of? And
well, I am a very lucky woman because I live on a beautiful piece of property on Cape Cod. And I had the pleasure of choosing a farm topic of lavender, growing lavender, that has enabled me to have a lavender farm and create a lifestyle, a simple lifestyle that I'm inclined to have. I like simplicity, and I like quiet, and I love nature. So it was a good fit for me, a really good fit. It's been great. And my kids are all grateful that they had a wonderful place to grow up. And I hope that, you know, they'll continue on. They all have their lives and do different things, but they're here often. And the grandbabies are here often. And it's wonderful. So it wasn't a choice of being a farmer. It was just a choice of growing something and inviting the public. That's been a huge thing because the public loves to come here and walk around. And that helps us because they come and they enjoy the flowers. They buy plants and bunches and products, and everybody's happy, and it's a nice life. Very nice. It's hard work, but it's nice.
I can imagine it is. It sounds like hard work, but thank you so much for sharing your time with us. I see one last question here from Elizabeth Whalen. Can we order your products online?
Yes, we have a store on our website, CapeCodLavenderFarm.com. Yep.
Excellent. Well,
Yes.
fantastic. Thank you so much. This was
Oh,
such a great, relaxing talk. I know it's made my day better, and I'm sure everybody watching along, it's made their day better as well.
well, thank you for having me, and thank you, and enjoy the rest of your day, everybody.